Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to the iSpring Solutions webinar series where every week we talk about e-learning trends, share iSpring tips and tricks, and cover clients' cases. My name is Paulina, I'm the community manager at iSpring and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. And at today's session, we're going to talk about 15 awesome PowerPoint tricks for creating effective presentations. And I believe these tricks will not only help you to create any type of presentations, but also will be helpful in your creation of your e-learning content. And as a speaker, I have today with me Richard Goring. Hi, Richard. How are you doing?
Hi, Paulina. Very good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you very much for asking. So Richard is a director at BrightCarbon, and he will be our presenter today. And I feel like Richard is the guru of PowerPoint. So he will be sharing his knowledge with you guys. And I think that we all are very lucky to be here today at this presentation. If you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to submit them in the question box, and you should find it on the right side of the GoToWebinar panel, and right now on the screen you should see how it looks. And also, this is very exciting. This is the first session of the whole webinar series of 3 webinars that are going to be dedicated to PowerPoint, and Richard is going to be our leader for this session. And in the chat box, I have shared with you the two links to other 2 sessions. So guys, take this opportunity and sign up for the future webinars. And I would like to mention for those who have just joined us that this webinar session is going to be recorded and you will definitely receive the recording after the webinar. However, I would like to encourage you to stay till the very end, and because it's a wonderful opportunity to address your questions directly to Richard. And I would like to thank all of you guys for joining us today. And I think at this point, we are ready to begin. And I see that people are saying where are the links, that there are no links. They should be in the question box, the one that you see on the screen right now. However, I will be more than happy to share them with you just one more time, really quickly.
It's in the chat box.
Yes. And the other one. However, I would be happy to send all of them to you in a personal manner, so don't worry, guys. Okay, Richard, let me please pass the presenter rights over to you.
Terrific, thank you so much. Let's get going. Okay. There we are. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Paulina, for all of that. Today, we're going to be looking at a series of awesome PowerPoint tricks. So let's turn us off and focus on the slides. So the first thing I want to do is say, okay, PowerPoint. Who likes PowerPoint? Well, typically not many people because it's really boring. So to level set, to get rid of your preconceived ideas, I wanted to show you all an example of something that's been created entirely in PowerPoint. Okay, so take a look at the following little slide here, following a little sequence, and this is all done using regular standard PowerPoint.
What's keeping you up at night? Oh, money problems. Unexpected expenses. Bills. Debt. Oh, no wonder you can't get to sleep. And when you find you do need some extra cash, where do you go? You could go to your parents for money, but that's a little awkward. You could go to the bank, yes, but you might not get a loan. And then there's all those forms. What about a payday loan? You can get the cash you need fast and get your problems sorted, right? Well, let's look into the future and... Oh dear, same situation as before, only now you've got that loan interest to worry about too. Well, you're not alone. Last year, lots of people reached the point where they'd had enough and got in touch with the Ombudsman. But how can we help? Let's say you're having trouble repaying a loan. We could help you agree affordable repayments. We can help if you're being harassed by debt collectors. Or if you're being chased for a loan that's not yours. And if you're not sure how to manage your debt, we could get in touch with the people who can help you repay it. Don't let financial worries keep you up all night. Talk to the Ombudsman. We can help. And you'll get a good night's sleep. Nighty-night.
So what do you all think? This is just PowerPoint. Anyone thought you could do that kind of thing with nothing but PowerPoint? Generally speaking, yeah, exactly. It's not what most people consider to be regular PowerPoint. And this is one of the things that everyone has to realize. PowerPoint is a tool. It's just often got a really bad interface to make it difficult. So let me show you something a little bit simpler, perhaps. Let me show you how, for example, you can draw anything you want to and then bring it to life using nothing but PowerPoint. So let's take a look. How long do you think it would take you to create, say, that key using nothing but PowerPoint? Do you want to type in the chat? Just give me an estimate. Roughly, how long would it take you to make? What are we getting? An hour? Hours? 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes? Oh, 2 years. All right, okay, whoa. We're way too far there. I reckon about 40 seconds. So I'm now going to get into the demo part of it. We're going to go to a blank screen in PowerPoint, and to draw that key, if anyone wants to time me, they can do. First of all, I'm going to draw a circle, which is the end of the key, duplicate it, put one on top of the other, and then shrink that down. Then I'm going to draw a rectangle, which is the barrel of the key that sits there like that, and 3 small rectangles, which are going to be the teeth of the key that goes there. Then I'm going to use something called the Boolean tools to subtract one circle from the other, merge all of them together. Let's make it a nice gold color. Let's get rid of the outline, put a gradient on it to give it some richness. Go to the Format tab, add in a bevel, and if I add in a bevel top and bottom, then I get a bit of depth to it like that. And finally, I can go to the 3D rotation functions, and there you have your key. So using nothing but PowerPoint, you have the ability to create anything that you want to. And so what I want to show you all today is a series of tips and tricks in PowerPoint at a much more sensible pace, don't worry, about how you can start to use PowerPoint to create these kinds of really useful and effective visual storytelling sequences. So any questions that you have throughout today's session, please type them in the chat and we'll answer them kind of as we go, or certainly towards the end as well. As Paulina mentioned, this whole thing is being recorded, so you can have a look back at it later on. We've also got a PDF guide if you want to, that will be shared with you all, and at the end I've got links to individual little recordings of each of these tricks in action as well if you want a particular one, so that you can go through that, and it's all got kind of nice step-by-step instructions that you can follow along. So my suggestion is have a look and see what you can do, and then later on pick up the things you really want to be able to do and learn how to do, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 of them or so, and then build up your skills over time. The first thing I wanted to do was show you a couple of ways that you can create content really quickly. So a question just come up here about what version of PowerPoint am I using. This is the latest version of PowerPoint. It's Office 2016 through Office 365. However, everything I'm going to show you is easily possible in Office 2010 and later, and most of it in 2007 as well. So really, it should be fine for everybody. Let's look at a couple of tricks when creating content. The first thing is, if you want to create content, just any kind of shape, you go to the Home tab on the ribbon, and then there's a selection of shapes here. And if I click on the drop down, you'll see these are all the standard auto shapes in PowerPoint, which is pretty simple. But can anyone see, for example, a square? And the answer to that is no. There is no square shape in here. Likewise, there's no circle. There's only rectangles, or there's an oval. So if you want to draw a square like that, normally you have to click on it and then try to guess, which is kind of hard. But when you're drawing something, if you press and hold the Shift key, then if you watch my shape now, if I press and hold the Shift key, it will jump to create a perfectly squared version of the shape. So a rectangle becomes a square, an oval becomes a circle by pressing and holding the Shift key. Another thing that's really useful is that when you normally click and you drag, the point at which you click is one corner of the shape and you're dragging another. However, if you press and hold the Control key when you're clicking and dragging, the point at which you click now becomes the center point of the shape. So the Control key is really useful if you want to click somewhere and drag out from that point. And if you press and hold the Shift and the Control key together, then you create a perfectly squared shape from that center point. So the Shift and the Control key, really useful there when you are creating shapes. And this should mostly be workable with Mac, PowerPoint for Mac as well, yes. In some cases, you have to use the Command key instead of Control, but a little bit of trial and error will figure it out. It's not one kind of direct mapping, unfortunately. Okay, for the next trick, it's kind of then moving stuff. So now if you want to move something, you can move it around by dragging it anywhere. But if you press and hold the Shift key, then you move it so that it stays in horizontal or vertical alignment with its original position. So I'm moving this left and right, but because I have the Shift key held down, it's not moving up and down when I've moved my cursor. So that's another way that you can try to move things around and be neater. But that works brilliantly when we look at the next piece, which is about copying and pasting. So I'm sure you all know the keyboard shortcut for copy paste is Control-C and Control-V. And for some unknown reason, it pastes it just to the right and just below the original shape. I have no idea why, because I never want the object to be there. I always need to click on it and drag it somewhere else. The only time this is useful is if you want to use the little paste options button that comes up at the bottom here, and there you can choose to paste as a picture. Now I have the ability to manipulate it in other ways, and we'll see why that's useful later. Before I do any of that though, what I normally would do instead of using Control-C and Control-V is do something called the copy drag. So if you click on an object and drag it as if you want to move it somewhere else, press and hold the Control key, and if you press and hold the Control key and then let go of the mouse first, you will now create a copy of the shape in that new position where you've dragged it to. And if you combine that with the Shift key to keep the movement perfectly horizontally aligned or vertically aligned, I can do the Control and the Shift key together to do a copy drag once, a copy drag twice, a copy drag 3 times, and I've now created a perfectly neat chevron process. And so this slide here, for example, has taken me probably 30 seconds to create. I've got a nice image in the background there of some beautiful scenery. I've created one chevron. I've done my copy drag using the Control key and the Shift key to make it all lined up, and then I've just gone through and changed the colors. So you can create some really useful tools or really useful slides just using those standard tools, those standard shapes. And it's not just that kind of thing in PowerPoint, which is fairly basic, but actually anything. So here's a slide we've created for one of our clients, for example, and everything on the slide here is all PowerPoint shapes. So for instance, I can click on this bit here and you'll see I pull this apart and it's all just individual shapes in PowerPoint that we've used to create that icon. So you've got the ability to create really anything you want to really very neatly, which is great. Okay, question there on the quick access toolbar. We will absolutely be getting to that in just a moment, and you can download exactly what I've got here in a matter of minutes. The thing that I wanted to touch on very briefly here is the fact that in PowerPoint, you also have the ability to format things in lots of different ways. So all of these nice boxes here are all using standard PowerPoint formatting techniques. There are lots of things that you can do potentially. So here, for instance, this shape on the left has a little bit of a bevel. It's got a gradient in it. The shape on the right is a solid fill color with no kind of 3D effects. You can make this shape on the right look like this shape on the left very easily by selecting it and going to the Format tab on the ribbon. Here you have the ability to change the shape fill. You can use lots of different colors here. You can choose more fill colors as well to create any color you want. You can also do lots of shape effects. So for instance, you can put a shadow on it, so make something stand out from kind of a shadow around it. It pops out to the slide, or have something that kind of is inset to the slide a little bit. You can put a reflection on it, although it's very rare that that looks good and it's difficult to make it work, so I would avoid it. A glow is a nice quick way to maybe highlight something on a slide, and used sparingly can be okay. Soft edges is something that I would tend to avoid because it's difficult, again, to make it work. It's not something that you would usually use. The bevel functions here can put a little bit of a 3D kind of shape on it, which is okay for something that looks flat. But if you try to combine it with the 3D rotation options, it's pretty difficult because sadly, PowerPoint is a dumb program. And so it doesn't really work properly in 3D, certainly with regular shapes. So here, for example, I've got text, but the text is flat over the 3D shape there. And it's virtually impossible for me to make this 3D as well so that it matches up with that. So for the most part, I would avoid the 3D stuff. What might be interesting though is the use of bevels. So here I've got this kind of shiny effect, and if I go to shape fill, down at the bottom here, I've got this ability to do a gradient. And so now I can choose any of these gradients. So you can see that there's different kind of levels going on there. And if I choose linear up, it's darker at the bottom, going to lighter at the top. And if I go back to my shape fill and then gradient on the format tab, if I choose more gradients, here I now get this bar on the right-hand side, or in Office 2007, it's a pop-up box that appears as well. It's exactly the same functions. I've now got this slider set here, and you can click on that slider set and you can add more colors which will influence your gradient. So I've just added a new stop. I can change the color over here on the drop down on the right. I can maybe make it a lighter color like that, for instance. You can see that appears. And as I move this gradient slider, can you see how I'm moving that gradient slider, and it's now changing the gradient on the shape as well. So I can match those up. And now I've got two puzzle pieces that match quite nicely. There are lots of different ways that you can manipulate shapes and you can change the formatting. My caution to you all would be, keep it really simple and keep it consistent. Decide on a style that you like, and then you use that style indefinitely. Now, it's very easy to say that, but what if you did want to have two different colors like this? It's a real pain. However, if we go to our next trick, there is a really neat little tool here that allows you to copy the formatting from one shape and apply it to another. So some of you might know the Format Painter, which is on the Home tab up here on the left, but that's kind of like the Midas touch. It just works on everything you click on, or it works once. Instead of that though, if you use the Shift key along with your old keyboard shortcuts Control-C and Control-V for copy paste, I will then copy the formatting. So I'm now going to click on this nice box on the left, do Control and Shift and C, that copies the formatting, and now I can click on this box on the right and do Control and Shift and V, and it pastes it over, pastes all the formatting over. And what's nice about this function as opposed to the Format Painter is that I can now draw extra content like that, do Control-Shift-V and it will work. And I can use this for as long as I have PowerPoint open as well. So it works really very well, unlike the Format Painter, which is either one use only or everything you click on is going to go like that as well. So I just think it's a little bit more intelligent than that, which works nicely. But whilst we're there, there's another tool which is like the Format Painter, but this time for animations. So if I open the animations pane up on my ribbon here, you can see I've got two robots, and this one on the left has got half a dozen animations. And in show mode, what they do is they make it walk forward and kind of walk to the side and walk towards you-ish. All right, that's kind of fine. But if I want to apply the same animations to this one, it might take me a minute or so. Instead, I can click on the robot on the left, go to the Animations tab on the ribbon, and over here on the right is this thing called the Animation Painter. And if I click on that, now I get a little brush icon next to my mouse cursor, and the next thing I click will have those same animations applied to it. So two really useful tools there, one for formatting and one for animations. All right, so there was a question about the quick access toolbar. This to me is the thing that you must absolutely all do to your PowerPoint. So you'll probably notice that my PowerPoint looks pretty much the same as yours, except I've got this extra row of icons down here at the bottom. This is the quick access toolbar, and it allows you to put any functions you use on a regular basis onto it so that you don't have to root around, whether it's in the Home tab or the Format tab or the Design tab or any of the other ones that keep coming and going, particularly the Format tab, which if I deselect that will disappear, which is a real pain. Okay, so the way to access it is you've all got it. It's up in the top left-hand corner if you've not used it before. So it'll be just up here like that, and it'll have like save, undo, redo, that's about it. So the first thing to do is to right-click on any of those icons up there and choose Show Quick Access Toolbar below the ribbon. That now brings it down closer to your slide and it fills the full width of your screen so you can add as many icons as you like. Then it's a really easy process. You simply right-click on any of the functions you use on a regular basis and choose to add to Quick Access Toolbar, and it will then come in at the end. If you want to get rid of anything, you can right-click on it and choose Remove from Quick Access Toolbar. Now, rather than spend 40 minutes or so hunting through all of the different tabs for all the functions you use regularly, which you don't have time for, instead, you can right-click on any function and choose Customize Quick Access Toolbar from the pop-up menu. This brings up this PowerPoint options window where you can see all of the functions that are available to you on the left and all the functions that are currently in your quick access toolbar on the right. There probably won't be very many here if you've not used it before. Again, just save, undo, redo, that kind of thing. Now, it doesn't look like there are very many things to choose from here on the left. That's because there aren't. But if you notice at the top here, there is this thing called popular commands, which is laughable because none of these are popular. But if you click on that as a drop down, you'll then see there's this thing here called all commands. And now you've got access to several thousand functions that you can choose from if you want to. And now instead of taking 40 minutes, it'll take you 2 hours to search through all of those, which you could do if you wanted to, or you can choose to import somebody else's quick access toolbar. So by going to the bottom right-hand corner here, you can choose import export, choose import customization file. And if you go to the BrightCarbon website, so brightcarbon.com, and do a search for quick access toolbar, there you'll find a little tutorial video showing you what I've just shown you, but also a download with this quick access toolbar that we all use at BrightCarbon. So you can download that. It's all completely for free. It's a standard Microsoft thing. It's built into PowerPoint, so there's no worry about security or anything in terms of that. And you can just easily import this quick access toolbar, which is a really good basis. And then if there are things you don't like, no problem, right click and remove it. If there are things you want to add, no problem, right click and simply add it to your quick access toolbar. But it's a really good basis from which you to add things. Now, the Mac. This is where it gets tricky because, of course, there's a bit of history. In the latest version of Office for Mac, there is a quick access toolbar there. You have to go to the little drop down, which is about here, and then choose to edit your quick access toolbar, I think. If anyone has any specific questions, drop me an email at the end and I can show it to you. It's a little bit more awkward, but it is there. But sadly, there is no support yet for being able to import a quick access toolbar, so I do apologize. However, I am hopeful that in the next version of Office, which is going to be released later this year, they will start to update this. They're making great strides on the Mac front for PowerPoint after many years of ignoring it. So sorry for any Mac users out there. Microsoft is trying to be friendly, but they're taking their sweet time about it, and hopefully they will get there soon. But the quick access toolbar, absolutely you should be using it. It's really very important. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing, which is now much more creative. And let's talk about something where you can create anything you want to with free-form shapes. So if I go to the Home tab and I go to the regular shapes here, there's lots of shapes to choose from, but there isn't a vast amount of choice. There's not an infinite number of things to do. So if you want to create a completely custom shape, there is a thing over here under line, second in from the right-hand side, called Freeform Shape. Now, Freeform Shape is interesting because it allows you to create anything you want to. It's completely counterintuitive to use compared to every other shape, so it's worth listening to this if you want to have a go. The first thing to note is if you click on it, it's this little kind of squashed Pac-Man type thing. Click on it, and just like a regular shape, you get your plus icon there to now create new content. What you need to do is click once and let go of your mouse button, and then move your mouse. And what you want to do here is click for individual points to create a straight line between those points to draw the rough outline of a shape. So you might just be able to make out there the little dotted gray line I've got, which is now going to trace the outline of a custom shape. So if I were to now click again and let go, I've now got a little horizontal line where I've clicked the two ends, and now I can hover my mouse around again. And so what I'm going to do now is just click and let go, and just keep clicking and letting go, just drawing round a basic outline of a shape that I want to create. The key with this is to click and then let go, because if you hold the mouse button down, PowerPoint thinks you're clicking furiously and you'll end up with a really squiggly line. If you want to finish it and you want an open shape, just double click and you'll get that single line. Or bring it back to the start point. It will fill in a color, in this case blue, click once, and now you've got a shape. Now that doesn't look very good, if we're honest. Particularly not if I say what I'm trying to draw is a car, but we're not done yet. What you now need to do, and this works with any shape, by the way, is right click on it and choose edit points from the pop-up menu about halfway down. that now brings in a black square everywhere that you clicked. Now, if you held your mouse button down, you'll not only have a squiggly line, you'll have thousands of black dots, so it's virtually impossible to do anything with. But with each of those black dots, you can now click and you can move them if you want to, so you can now start to edit your shape a little bit more like that, which can be pretty neat. Better than that, you can also click on the little red outline around your shape, click there and drag a new point, or press and hold the Control key, hover over one of those black points, your cursor turns to an X, and you can now delete that point. Even better than that, though, is if you right-click on any one of those points, you can then choose whether it's a corner point, so very angular, which is the default, or a straight or a smooth point. And if you choose any of those, you get these little white boxes, which are called the Bezier vector handles. And now if I click on those and drag it around, I can start to manipulate the nature of the shape. Click on any of these like that, and so I can start to make that wheel arch a bit smoother. Right click on this one, choose smooth point, drag that out there like that. Again, increase that there and like that. I'm going to right click on this one, choose a smooth point, drag that in, and then there I've got something closer to a car. And if I were to draw a couple of circles, one there like that, let's make that black, do my copy drag with the Control key, shrink this down like that, make that one silver there, and then again do my copy drag over there. Now I've got something that's much closer to a car. Well, that's what I call a car because I'm European. If you're American, you probably call that a shoe, but you know, you get the idea. You can draw something big or you can draw something nice and small like a golf there, for example. And so using this tool, you have the ability to create pretty much anything that you want to, which is great. Okay, so that's fantastic, but let me show you another slide here. So this is the slide that, again, we've created for one of our clients. My colleague Chris did this, and he's created it all using standard PowerPoint shapes, or rather PowerPoint kind of functions anyway. So here, for instance, we're showing with a flat vial and you're pipetting stuff out of it, you lose a lot of the material at the bottom. If you tilt it, then you lose a little bit less, but still quite a lot. But with this new kind of approach, rather than losing kind of 30% or 10% of your stuff, you can insert a new kind of thing. That means that you can now get your pipette down and you lose far less of your reagents or your sample by using this kind of approach rather than the old-fashioned vials. So that's the story there. But in order to make that story come to life, we've had to draw all of these custom shapes. Now, you could do that using the freeform tools, but to be honest, it will be quite hard. So in addition to the freeform tool, there's another tool that we like to use called the Boolean tools. And a really good demonstration of these in action is to create something really simple like a puzzle piece, for example. So in order to make these Boolean tools work, you have to recognize that what they do is they manipulate different regular shapes with each other. So that's how I created the key at the start, for example. So the basic building blocks of a puzzle piece are, first of all, a couple of squares. So I'm going to draw one square here like that, and then I'm going to duplicate that and put the other one next to it like that. And just to make it easier, I'm going to change the color of this one as well. So I've now got, let's say, a darker blue one like that. So I've got these two squares. Then I need to create a circle. So I'm going to draw a circle like that. And again, I'll change the color so it's nice and easy to see what's going on. So a gray one. I'm going to duplicate that circle. Let's make that yellow. And I'm now going to line both of these up on top of each other and move them so that they are just slightly off the center point between the two squares. And then I'm going to zoom in, which I can do by pressing the Control key on the keyboard and scrolling up with the mouse. And I'm going to shrink this yellow circle down. And what I want is for the gap between the circle and the squares to be pretty much the same. Okay, so you see that gap there is pretty much the same as this gap. And I also want to move these so there's just a very slight overlap between the left-hand light blue square and the smaller yellow circle there. So does that pretty much make sense? Can you all see what I've done there? Two squares and two circles, and there's a slight gap between all of them. Okay, so that's the basis of all of this. The next step is really kind of blink and you miss it, because what I'm now going to use is use these Boolean tools to manipulate these shapes. So I'm going to select the right-hand square and then select the larger gray circle. I'm going to go to the Format tab on the ribbon, and over on the left-hand side, I've got Merge Shapes, And if I click on that drop down, I've got 5 different ways that I can manipulate the shapes relative to each other. And the one that I want to choose here is subtract, which will now cut out that gray circle from the right-hand blue square. If I go to the ones on the left here, I can select the light blue square and the yellow circle, go back to the Format tab, merge shapes, and now I want to do union, and that merges them together as a single object. Now the trick with these Boolean tools, if I just undo that, is to make sure that you select the thing you want to keep first. So if, for instance, I were to draw 2 squares like that, for example, I'm going to select the blue square first and then the yellow one. If I go to the Format tab and merge shapes, if I do combine, well, that's just weird. It kind of cuts out the overlap, and I've never understood why. If I choose intersect, it keeps just the overlap between them. But if I do subtract, you'll see it cuts out the yellow square from the blue one. And if I do union, it merges them together. But what you'll notice with all of these, that it's always blue because it keeps the formatting of the original shape that you clicked. If I do the same thing with the yellow one, click that one first and then the blue one, go to merge shapes. Now I do union and it's yellow, combine and it's yellow, fragment and it's yellow. So it's always yellow instead. So keep the thing you want to select the thing you want to keep first. So I'm going to select the large square and do subtract, and then the square in the circle, and then do union. And now I've got some perfect puzzle pieces. And of course, with these, you can also right click, you can choose edit points, and you've got those same black edit point marks that you can then add to if you wanted to do that, and you can manipulate it if you want to do something crazy with it like that as well. So you have the ability to play around with these things really rather well, and a combination of those 2 tools works really very nicely. Okay, for those of you in PowerPoint 2010, these are not on your Format tab. You have to add these functions to your quick access toolbar. They're kind of buried. And sadly for users of PowerPoint 2007 or earlier, they aren't there in PowerPoint. So I do apologize there, but it's well worth updating to a new version just for these functions alone. Right, let's get into a bit of a scenario here. You have created a slide, you're doing it for your team, you're talking about the strategy you're going to have as a group, so you're talking about the journey ahead, you've come up with a nice image of a road there to talk about the journey you're going on, and you've come up with 3 points that are going to kind of set the strategy and set the tone for your presentation. You've put them there, they're nicely lined up. That is a good slide, you are pleased with it, it's going to be a good conversation with your team. And then, a little bit to show off, but mostly out of courtesy, you send it to your boss just to see what she thinks, and she comes back and says, yep, I like it, really good slide. I've just made a couple of tweaks for you. Any chance you could tidy it up? And what you get back is that. Oh no, how long does it take you now to try to reposition all of this to see if we can line these? It's not going to work. But never fear, if you have a slide like this that you need to tidy up, it's going to take you seconds to do it using the alignment and distribution tools. Okay, so here we've got a whole load of these black circles. I'm going to select all of them, go to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Arrange section over on the right. Down at the bottom of that is this thing called Align, and here I have 6 different options that allow me to line objects up relative to each other. So if I choose Align Left, it will align all the objects to the leftmost portion of the leftmost shape. If I were to choose Align Middle, for example, it'll align them all to the average of the middle point. So if you watch as I do that, Align Middle, boom, they're now all lined up. I can also go back to the Home tab and Arrange and Align, and just below the alignment tools, I've got 2 distribution tools that allow me to evenly space the objects, with the outside objects being the ones that are important. So I will go to Align and then distribute horizontally, and it will now evenly space these objects. These to me are the single most useful point, and it makes me so annoyed that they are buried in a submenu of a submenu of a submenu to find them. So for me, I have done right-click, add to quick access toolbar for all of them, and they are front and center in my quick access toolbar right there. So I can now select these new ones at the bottom, do align center, that one at the bottom there, align center, and I'm now going to select all of them, line to top, align distribute there, and now they're all evenly spaced out. So in a matter of seconds, you can tidy up your slide nice and neatly using distribution tools, and they should absolutely be on your quick access toolbar. Cool. Neman there talking about using guides. Yes, absolutely. You can right click on the slide, you can choose grid and guides, and you can start to add those in as well. Absolutely. You should ideally be working to a grid structure as well. But if you don't have the ability to do that, or it's too much, then this is at least a way to keep everything nice and neat. But yeah, do all of the design principles of setting up grids and guides and working to a grid structure, absolutely, and even set that up in a template. Okay, that's a really good quick trick there. All right. Yeah, so it's a good point. Okay, so let's move on then. Now, if you'll forgive me, I want to try to present to you a slide. So you're going to have to just sit back and kind of listen to story mode for a second. You can largely ignore the story. What I want you to all focus on is the content on the slide and recognize that everything I'm about to show you is on one slide. Okay, that's the thing you need to remember. It's all on one slide. So the story here is for Johnson & Johnson. So again, one of our clients, we created a slide for their onboarding training. It's all about their credos, that kind of four kind of main driving ethos is, and this one is about connecting. So what we're doing is delivering things to customers all over the world in all sorts of different guises, lots of different products that we're delivering to them, and we want to make sure that we're delivering the best products and services to them. We also recognize, though, that not every time you're going to get it right, and so sometimes there are problems that come up with those products, and so we need to examine what those problems are so that we can then be driven by insights into what kind of issues and challenges our customers face to create the next generation of products that are even better. Of course, in order to do that, we also need to make sure that we're focusing on partnerships across our R&D teams, our business teams, our manufacturing partners as well, and ultimately have conversations on a clinical level and at a business level so that we're connecting and collaborating across all different levels of our business. Right, okay, that is all one slide. So if I do an edit mode here, you can see there's loads of stuff going on, but do you remember there were 4 people right at the start of that which had the products over them? They're nowhere to be seen on this slide. I need to move him out of the way, I need to move that out of the way, and now all of a sudden there I can access the people. So what if I want to make an edit to that? That's going to be really difficult with all these different kind of things over the top. And so this is where you need to recognize that, well, if you're a fan of Shrek, you'll already know this, that ogres, onions, parfait, and PowerPoint all have layers, and you need to know how to manipulate them. The easiest way to manipulate layers in PowerPoint is to use something called the selection pane. So if you go to the Home tab and Arrange, just underneath where we found the alignment tools before, you can now find something called the selection pane. And this brings up a list of all of the functions, all of the objects rather, that are on your slide. So here, for instance, I've got 3 blue boxes, but if I try to click on them, there's something going on there. And that's because there is this extra semi-transparent white box. Rather than move it out the way or cut it, I can click on that object there, go to the selection pane, and you see there's a little eye icon next to all of these. If I click on the eye icon there, then it will temporarily disappear from view. I've not deleted it, so I don't lose any animations or anything that's on it. It's just hidden so that I can now access the things beneath it. You can also control the layers using the selection pane as well. So here I've got the dark blue box that's ahead of the other 2, and I can use my layering tools here, but I can also use the up and down arrows with the objects selected on the selection pane on the right. So I've got dark blue here, which is above medium blue. You can see that it's above there, but if I click down, it now goes below the medium blue in the list and is now below the medium blue in the layers as well. I can click down again, it's now below the light blue box, which is called rectangle 10. And that's also irritating, because what does rectangle 10 mean? Well, you can also use the selection pane to rename this object. So I can click on the object, I can select it again, and now I can now choose light blue like that. And now I've got a name for all of my objects rather than the random rectangle 42 or oval 17 or whatever you get normally. And that's also really useful because if you've got complex animations, then when you're animating objects in PowerPoint, those names will also appear in the animation pane too. So the selection pane might seem like it's not terribly useful for something simple like that, but what if you have a slide like this where you've got the world map with each individual country made up of a PowerPoint shape? what we've got here is all of them named. And so a really neat trick here is I'm going to duplicate my world map. I'm going to make it lighter like that. I'm then going to line these up on top of each other. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to select all of the countries beginning with I, for example. So there we are. And I've now got to select all of those there. And I can now change the color of those like that. And now I can just add in a simple fade animation so that I'm going to go between the two of them. So in show mode, here's my world map, click, there's all the countries beginning with I, as an example. And if anybody wants this particular map, by the way, along with a whole load of other US state maps, the UK map, I think we've got a couple of other countries there, the whole world map just as a single bit. If you go to the BrightCarbon website, you can just search PowerPoint maps and you'll come up with a tutorial on how to use lots of different functions in maps, but also a download of a maps PowerPoint toolkit, and all of the countries and all of the states and everything are all named just like this. So that's something that might be useful to some of you. And it's all standard editable PowerPoint stuff. All right, so the selection pane, really useful there to be able to control stuff. Let's do another quick productivity tip. I talked before about the Control-Shift-C, which by the way still works, to Control-Shift and V, and I'm now pasting exactly the same function there. And that's fine, but I keep having to do it. And it's just a pain to have to draw something and then do Control-Shift-V all the time. And it only works as long as PowerPoint is open. If I close PowerPoint down, I would lose it. So better than that, if you've got a shape that you like the formatting for, right-click on it, and from the pop-up menu here, just down from the bottom, fourth in from the bottom there, you've got Set as Default Shape. Now if I choose that, anything that I draw will be the same formatting. And what's really useful about that is that it saves with the file. So I can close down PowerPoint, I can email it to somebody else, they will open it, and they have the same default formatting. And so you can set default styles for shapes, but you can also do it for lines, and you can also do it for text boxes as well. So if you wanted your line to be really thick and yellow, for example, not a problem, right-click, set as default line. And for text boxes, if you wanted your text box to appear so that instead of it being black, it was always white and it was always large and it was always bold, not a problem, right-click, set as default text box. So shapes, lines, and text boxes are the things that you can set defaults for, which works really very nicely indeed. Okay, and a couple of other little tips and tricks here just on some formatting elements. Those are really nice ways to essentially kind of hack the slide master and the template, which is just really awkward to use normally. I also wanted to show you the use of color themes, because let's be honest, have you all seen a slide somewhere that looks a bit like that? Because there's just way too much going on, and that's the kind of reaction that you get from your audience. Because believe me, ladies and gentlemen, more colors is not always better. So one thing that you really want to do is to be able to use and set a color theme. So here I have a whole lot of icons and little placeholders, and if I click on any of those, if I click on this drop down, can you see that all of the colors of my icons match my color theme here? Now this is a BrightCarbon color theme. It's very garish, it's very Simpsons-like, it's kind of deliberate, that's fine. But if it's not right for you, no problem. Because I have colored all of these shapes using these theme colors, it's a really easy thing to change. If you go to the Design tab on the ribbon, over here on the right-hand side with this drop down here under Variants, I've now got the ability to set the default color theme and the font theme. I'd stay clear of the effects really, because it's difficult to make it work properly and they're generally bad. But colors is really useful, because what you can do with colors is you can scroll down any of these presets and you see as I hover over them, all of those icons are now changing color because I've used the theme colors in making those shapes. You can also choose your own ones. So say for instance, I choose colorful here like that. I'm going to go back to it, choose customize colors, and now I can choose any of these accent colors here. So click on that as a drop down, do more colors, choose whatever I want to there. And then you can also save that as a new theme. So if I do kind of colorful 2, for example, save, now that is there in my PowerPoint and I've got those 2 different themes. And what's really nice about that is that any version of PowerPoint you open, you will be able to access those if you want to. And once you select it, it will save with the PowerPoint. But these saved color themes are also available across any Office product as well. So if you want to use the same thing for for Outlook or for Word or for Excel, it will work really very nicely to do all of those things, which is really pretty cool. So you've got lots of different functions there that you can choose from so that you can make a set that works really very nicely and works pretty well. Okay, let's get on to another tool now, which is about how you can bring your stories to life with graphs. Okay, so here we've got a graph. That's kind of fine. Graphs are a great way to be able to tell a visual story. But if I go into show mode here, it's too much all at once. So I've lost control on where you're looking. If I want to talk about just North America or just product A, for example, you might get distracted by the Asia group or the product C data set. So animation is a really useful tool to be able to pace the flow of information and bring content in piece by piece. The way that you would do this is go to the Animations tab on the ribbon, choose Add Animation. Actually, I'm just going to bring in the animation pane here, which shows you a list of all the animations. I'm going to choose Add Animation, and I'm going to choose a nice simple animation like white, for example. And what that does is it gives me an animation on the animation pane there, which relates to this chart. And when I bring it up in show mode, I have nothing, and then I click, and the chart comes up. But to be honest, that's just as bad. It's just added an extra step for me as a presenter now to click, because it's still everything at once. But if you click on the animation, just next to the Add Animation function is this thing called Effect Options. In some animations, for instance, the wipe, it allows you to change the direction, so you can choose from bottom, left, right, or top. But with a graph or a chart or any kind of smart art, you can also choose the sequence. So the default is by one object, but you can also do it by series, by category, or by element in either. And if I choose by series, for example, then I now get a little gray drop down in my animation pane, and here I have 4 animations now, so that when I bring this up in show mode, I get just the axes, so I can explain the context. Then I click for product A. We can all focus on that and talk about it. Click for product B, and then click for product C. And now I, as the presenter, am in control of what everyone is seeing, and everyone can be coordinated on the same thing. So that works really very well to very quickly create a compelling visual slide using a chart like that. Now, animations for the most part should be simple. I encourage you to use the entrance animations for 90% of all the animations you do, because it's about bringing in content to pace the flow of information and focus attention. But there are some things which can be a little bit tricky. So for instance, let's go to this slide where I'm going to show you a clock, and I'm going to make the hands on that clock spin around. Any idea how you would do that? Anyone know where you could make that hand spin around? So let's go to this slide here, for instance. I've got a clock and I've got my hand there as a separate object. Rotation, Russell said rotation. Anyone else got any ideas for how you would make that spin around? If I go to the animation pane here, it's not called rotation, but essentially does the same thing. Yeah, okay, fine. If I go to the add animation, in the emphasis animations here, which should be used very sparingly, I hasten to add, because most of them are distracting or just terrible, there is one function here called spin, and that allows you to spin objects around or rotate them, as you say. Okay, perfect. The problem is that if I choose spin, watch what happens with the little preview that comes up with that clock hand. I do spin and well, that's just worse than useless, isn't it? Unless you're kind of Dali-esque or something, that's just never going to work. Because the problem with most animations in PowerPoint is that they're pretty dumb and they always work around the center point of an object. So in that case, here. But I wanted to spin around this, just kind of inside the edge of the shape. So the way around this is to alter the center point. Now, you can't alter the center point of an individual object, but if I were to draw, say, a box, and I were to click at the point that I want this hand to spin around to create the shape, press and hold the control key like I had before to draw out from that center point, I can now draw a box like that. I'm going to get rid of the fill, so it's now invisible. And I tell you what, I'll just put a line on it so you can see what's going to happen here. but I've now got this box. I'm going to group it with my clock hand like that. I've now got a single object, also PowerPoint thinks anyway, because it's now a group. Group, by the way, is the keyboard shortcut is Control and G, and Control, Shift and G will ungroup it. So Control G to group. Now my center point is here, and if I go to the Animations tab and add a spin animation, now it works. And if I get rid of the outline from my shape there, you and I can't see that box, but PowerPoint thinks it's there because PowerPoint's a dumb program, and so I can now get my hand to spin around there perfectly. So using a false center point like that can work really very well and is a really simple thing to do. Okay, so PowerPoint is perhaps more useful than many people think. You can do an awful lot of stuff with it, which is, I think, pretty useful to be able to tell lots of stories. Now, there are clearly loads of different things that you can do with PowerPoint. And if you tune in again the same time next week for our second installment, you'll see a whole load of ways that you can bring full stories to life using lots of complex visual sequences or elegant, simple visual sequences as well to tell your story. What I would suggest now is, first of all, at BrightCarbon, we're kind of really geeky and we like to do cool stuff. This is what we do. So we do presentations and e-learning and dynamic animations and infographics for people. Clearly, that's a shameless plug, but also we like to share stuff. So if you want to check out the BrightCarbon website, there are loads of free resources and cool blog posts and masterclasses that we run every week as well. Just 30-minute versions of this kind of thing on all of those different topics. So if any of those things are interesting to you, check it out and take a look. The thing that I would recommend you all do kind of this afternoon, if you have time, or tomorrow, is go to brightcarbon.com/PPT-tricks, because there you'll see short little kind of micro videos of everything that we've covered. So if you can't find it in the full recording from today, again, check that out. You can see pretty much the same thing there, which is going to work really well. And also go to brightcarbon.com/PPT-toolkit. That's probably the most important, because there you can download a completely free PowerPoint toolkit with loads of different kind of elements. There's about 25-30 slides or so in it, but it's got things like a couple of the maps. It's got different layouts that you can kind of use. So check that out. I would encourage you to do so. So yeah, Paulina, thank you. Put the chat there. That's great. If anyone needs anything, clearly we've got a couple of minutes now for questions and stuff, which is great, but also just drop me an email. So my email directly is richard.goring@brightcarbon.com, or just email info@brightcarbon.com. It'll come through the team and get through to me, or someone else will be able to answer the question for you as well. We are really happy to share stuff, to show off, I mean, to help people with lots of different things related to presentations and e-learning and any kind of visual storytelling. So please do get in touch. So with that, any questions? I think I saw one just there on the use of templates earlier on. So one thing that I say is, if you can double team yourself kind of next week, so do 2 webinars back to back, just before next week's exciting installment of mind-blowing PowerPoint, we're calling next week's one with iSpring, there is a BrightCarbon run 30-minute session on just templates and masters. So if you go to brightcarbon.com and go to the events page, you can sign up for that next week, and then you'll go from that, have a half-an-hour break, and then come straight into this one next week as well. So those 2 webinars next Thursday are going to be awesome. Any questions? Right, I won't personally do a VBA session there, Neman, because that's fantastically complicated. The person that I would recommend that you get in touch with is Jamie Goring of uPresent. So Jamie is a phenomenal coder and understands everything and anything there is to do with VBA. So check out Jamie on Twitter, or go to upresent.co.uk, I think it is. So he's definitely the one to go with there for VBA stuff. And VBA, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of the way that you can program and customize PowerPoint outside of the standard functions. So it's kind of getting into Visual Basic kind of programming. There's a lot of very cool things that you can do, but it's not something that I'm good. Jamie Goring is GARROCH, or uPresent, YOU present.co.uk, and Jamie is phenomenal. Any other questions? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining as well, and for the lovely comments that you're all typing in. This is lovely. Can you type text into a shape without adding a text box? Yes, absolutely, you can do. So let's go here to a box. Let's go to a blank slide. This one will do. So if I draw a shape like that, I can then just start typing, and it will automatically become a text box as well. And yeah, you're right, Sana, the visuals idea and stuff is very tricky. So the third in our trinity of PowerPoint webinars with iSpring is coming up just at the end of July, and that's the one to sign up for there, because there we're going to be going through a whole lot of sequences on how you can create visual sequences for anything. And the one next week is about how you get away from text and bullet points and create visual sequences, but more focuses on the technical how-to, with only a little bit of kind of tuition on the visual sequences. So both of those I would recommend. Morph, I'm not going to cover Morph specifically. We've got a few minutes now, so I can do it. I wasn't going to, rather, because Morph is Morph is one of the best and also one of the worst features of PowerPoint. Okay, so let me show you just this slide and answer this Morph question. So here, for example, I've got a slide and I've got a box. If I copy that box and go to another slide that looks the same, just delete that, paste this one in and move it, if I transition from one slide to another, this is slide 1 and that's slide 2, and the box kind of just moves because I've gone from one slide to another. But if you've got Office 365, if you go to the Transitions tab, you'll see just next to fade is this new transition called morph. And what that does is it recognizes that this box and this box are the same, they're just in different positions. And so now, instead of it fading from one to another, it will go from this to that seamlessly. Now this is brilliant because it means you can move things around really easily just by having them on two separate slides. The problem is that it only works in Office 365. So if you have an earlier version of PowerPoint, it doesn't work, which is really frustrating. With Morph, it's not just about moving stuff, but also I've got here a small green circle on the top left. I've copied that and pasted it and then made it larger and made it purple on this slide. It's the same object, just different formatting and sizing and position now, and I can transition between the two, and it goes from one to another using Morph. And it also works on 3D. So here I've got a square that's got a 3D rotation on it in one direction, and I click to the next slide and it spins around. So Morph is just phenomenal to be able to create really complex sequences very easily and very simply. You'll see some examples of that on the webinar next week in my little kind of intro piece, which is a bit of kind of scene setting and theory from BrightCarbon. So it's kind of useful unless you want to use a different version of PowerPoint, in which case it's not available, I'm afraid. But in 5 years' time, when everyone has it, it'll be cool.
Richard, thank you so much for presenting for our today's audience, and we really appreciate it. And we have received tons of comments that you're a god of PowerPoint, you're a guru of PowerPoint, and everyone just loved your way of presenting and your humor. And there is a wonderful comment that I would like to read out loud just as we're wrapping up our webinar. From Robert. I'm preparing to teach online. I had previously thought about abandoning PowerPoint, but due to this webinar, I have had a total reversal opinion. I look forward to the next 2 webinars. I will have a number of questions that deal with situations that I will probably encounter. So you are now make people make life-changing decisions. So thank you very much for doing that. And I really appreciate you coming and making this webinar happen. And at this point, I would like to also mention that I will send you guys the recording of this webinar as soon as it's uploaded up on the YouTube and also our website. And we will be also sharing the PDF from Richard, so you'll be able to use it as well and then review the webinar at your own pace. And please sign up for the other 2 webinars of this series because they will be as awesome as this one. This is 100% true information, so you will like it, guys.
Thank you so much, Paulina. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have any particular questions, I know there's a couple there that we've not been able to cover, please do just drop me an email I'm happy to share with you the answers to any of those specifically. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you to iSpring. Thank you to Polina for hosting this. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you all again, same time next week.
Yeah, wonderful. And I have shared Richard's email address in the chat box. So if you guys, have a couple of moments to copy it and make it one of your favorite addresses. And I would like to say to you, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you at the next webinar. I'm looking very much forward to it, and I hope you guys enjoy your day. Thank you, Richard. Bye bye, everyone.